Should the Rams trade Matthew Stafford? That's coming up on Locked On Rams.
You are Locked On Rams, your daily Los Angeles Rams podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, Ramley? Thank you for making Locked On Rams your first listen every single day, free and available wherever you get your podcasts. We're also available on YouTube. If you're new to the channel, be sure to hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell. We want all your Rams takes down below. Drop a comment. Do you think the Rams should trade Matthew Stafford? Let us know down below. My name is Doug McCain. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at DMac_LA. I've been covering LA sports for over a decade. You might know me for covering the Dodgers for Dodgers Nation. And as always, that man to your right is the legend, Mr. Travis Rogers, the Rams pre-half and post-game show host for the Rams flagship radio network, ESPN 710 LA. He's entering his 8th season covering the Rams. You can follow him at Travis Rogers. Now, Travis, we have a beefy topic to get into. Should the Rams trade Matthew Stafford? Are you ready to get into it, my man?
Let's get into it. I think this is the most interesting thing on the Rams' plate as they head into not just this season, but over the next couple of seasons, for sure.
Well, let's dive right into it. So NFL.com's Marc Sessler on the Around the NFL podcast, he said that LA's top priority for the remainder of the offseason should be keeping an open mind surrounding a trade for Matthew Stafford. Now, if you look at Matthew Stafford, if you look at his ability, we know that he has the talent, he has the ability to be an elite quarterback. He's shown that in this league. He led this team to a Super Bowl championship, and we're going to get into some of the ramifications of a potential trade. But right off the bat, just what are your thoughts on the idea of keeping an open mind to trading Stafford?
I think this is the thing that the Rams have arguably been the best at in the Sean McVay era, is keeping an open mind in deciding when it's time to double down on something and when it's time to move on for something. I think that this is what makes great organizations great. It's not this idea that we do this thing and no matter what happens, we're going to stay in this lane and this is how we do it. It's the understanding of the lane needs to fit the personnel. When it's time to move on from certain personnel into new personnel, when you realize, you know what, we might have made an error in an evaluation on a player, to move on from the player. When it's time to wait a little bit longer for a guy, and the Rams have been incredibly good at this. This is why they've been as successful as they have under Sean McVay. It's a weird dynamic, Doug, right? To have a quarterback that just won you the Super Bowl not that long ago. The reason you won the Super Bowl was because of him. You went out and got him to do exactly what it is that he did. And yet in a very short period of time, you got to have that exact what you're talking about, that open mind of, hey, is this done? And not is he done, is this done? And I think that's the decision that they're trying to figure out.
Yeah, I think if you look at Matthew Stafford, and like you said, if you are going to leave a situation, or maybe it's better to do it now. I always believe in the quote, what must be done eventually should be done immediately. Do you do it now? Do you try to see if you can get some cap relief, if you can get some picks? Now, if you look at what he's going to get on the market, you're not going to get first-round picks or anything like that. You might be lucky to get a third-round pick, a fourth-round pick, and some cap relief. If you look at his dead cap hit for 2023, it's $49.5 million. 2024, it's $49.5 million. The dead cap is $36 million in 2025. The cap hit in 2025 is $49 million. So that is a lot for a 36-year-old quarterback with lingering elbow issues. That does seem like a recipe for a trade. But I want to ask you, how much of a fact do you think it is the current state of Matthew Stafford? He has that elbow injury. We know how talented he is. We know he has an elite arm. But do you think that is impacting his future?
Well, I think it impacted his past for sure, right? That you saw what we saw last year, and he did not look like Matthew Stafford. He did not look like the guy that we saw in 2021 where they won the Super Bowl, where he was making throws that made your eyes pop out of your head. That the juxtaposition of what he brought to the position with what Jared Goff brought to the position was jarring. It was just so different how they approached what they were doing, and how Stafford was able to do more on top of what was just written down on the play sheet. I think that's a big part of it. The money that you just laid out, D-Mac, I think is an important part of it too. But here's the good news if you're a Rams fan. Here's the good news if you are one of these people that wants to see them move on from Matthew Stafford, or even if you're somebody that is thinking, no, not quite yet. the money does not really dictate the decisions that the Rams have made. Look at the decisions that they've made in the past. They paid Todd Gurley, boom, gone. They decided that Jared Goff needed to get that fifth-year extension. They gave it to him. They gave him the $100 million. And then it seemed like 5 seconds later, he was traded to Detroit. We've seen them be able to give guys a lot of money, and still when it's time to move on from that player, it's like, oh, we're going to eat a bunch of dead cap. They don't seem to care nearly as much about that as some other organizations do. My pal Keyshawn Johnson has said this a million times, and at first he told me, I'm like, nah, dude, you're out of your mind. Turns out he's exactly right. If they want to pay you, they're going to figure out a way to pay you. If they want to manipulate their cap, you can keep pushing that thing down the road, and I guess at some point you're going to have to pay it, but you don't really have to worry about small windows as far as cap, as far as picks and all these things. If you want to get something done, there's always a way to get it done, and that includes moving off of a player.
Yeah, and I think you bring up a great point in that, when it comes to money, that's not really the issue with the Rams. It's about getting that cap space, getting that flexibility so they can get a fresh start. Now, with the guaranteed money that came into play with that $57 million that locked in March, there are going to be significant cap implications for that deal, and his signing bonus would accelerate into the 2023 season. So this is really what it comes down to me. If you are going to tear it all down, then eating all that cap in 1 year is probably the fastest way to try to get yourself out of cap hell. And also, you can do trades post June 1st. You can spread it over 2 years. But look, the reality is, if they think that he is the guy that can help them win next season, and that you could put some pieces around him, and you have a better offensive line with a better running game, and you have some of these receivers, and you still have Cooper Kupp, the best receiver in the league. So look, there is a world where you can say Matthew Stafford can still help us win a quarterback. Look, this Rams franchise has never won a Super Bowl without an elite QB. They've shown us that. Kurt Warner, Matthew Stafford. So you still need an elite quarterback to win. But on the flip side, look, this is a roster that can they really compete, and you're really not doing yourself any services for just kind of like just being kind of mediocre.
I think you bring it up. That's such a good point, that you need to figure out the calculus of, are we going to be good again when Matthew Stafford is still an elite quarterback? That's in a nutshell. That's what it is. Will the rest of the team be good enough to compete for a championship? And by the time that's true, will Matthew Stafford still be good enough to be that guy? That's what you need to ask yourself. Are we going to be good in a year? Then you keep Matthew Stafford. Is this going to take 2 or 3 years for us to rebuild the roster? Then he's not the answer to this question. That's what you got to figure out. I think it's probably more towards the latter than the former, but that's the math. Is Matthew Stafford going to be a championship level quarterback when the offensive line is fixed, when the defense is fixed, when you find that second wide receiver? Will they be good enough when he's good enough, and vice versa?
Yeah, no, that's the most important thing as well. And then also, too, you could start the season, see how things play out early on. If they do get off to a 1-4 start, you wait for one of these Super Bowl contenders to see if one of their QB1s go down, and then you can trade him. So, look, if they're going to punt on the season, tank for a high draft pick, might as well pick up the phone and see what they can get for Stafford, even if it is just cap relief. That's what my brain tells me, but my heart tells me I want to win. I want to try to compete. I want to see what we have in a guy that led us to a Super Bowl champion. So it is a very complicated conversation. I don't know if you watch The Property Brothers with Jonathan and Drew Scott. It's my mom's favorite show. I've seen a few episodes. And sometimes they say, look, sometimes yes, you want to remodel, like what Les Snead says, but sometimes you can't remodel. Yes, you have all these heartwarming memories and Christmases and all these great memories, but sometimes it's better just to move, just to rebuild, just to move on. So maybe this is a situation where, if you look at what's best for the future of the Rams, maybe you look at some of these draft picks, Caleb Williams, like we talked about, maybe you go that direction. I'd be honest with you, I'm pretty torn on the issue when it comes to the pros and cons of having a losing season in 2023, and the fact that the Rams will have their first round pick back, and the higher the pick is, maybe you can make a run at Caleb Williams, but there's no guarantee that Caleb Williams is going to be a star. I think he has all the potential in the world, and I think there is a good chance that he will be, and I think it's highly unlikely that the Rams are going to entertain the idea of trading Stafford. I still feel like they believe he has something left in the tank, and with an improved offensive line, an improved running game, a healthy Matthew Stafford, this thing upright and avoiding injury, well, this can be one of the best offenses in the league that can score points and maybe be a surprise contender in the NFC West. And maybe you won't win the Super Bowl, but still, I think you'll have some positive momentum heading into 2024 when you got that first round pick back, when you're going to have some cap space to add some pieces around Kupp, Donald, and Stafford, and then you go and try to make another Super Bowl run. But coming up next, were the Rams ever interested in Carson Wentz as a backup QB option? That's coming up on Locked On Rams.
All right, D-Mac, before we talk more quarterbacks, let's talk about snacks, right? We're looking for a delicious snack. You want something that not only tastes good, but you want something that you can feel good about as well. So why not try the best tasting protein bar ever? Built. You absolutely got to try this. You want to make healthier snack choices, but at the same time, you want something that tastes good or you're not going to eat it in the first place, right? So we've got the thing for you, and that, of course, are Built Bars and Built Puffs. Built Bars, they are both healthy and they taste amazing. They are so amazing, you're going to be thinking, there's no way this is good for me. How do you do this? Well, by starters, you cover them in 100% real chocolate. 100% real chocolate. There are all sorts of great flavors like churro, peanut butter brownie, cookies and cream. And I'm not a scientist. I don't know how you put these things together, but here's what it is. They taste great while maintaining amazing macros. What's even better, incredibly healthy. Only 130 calories, just 4 grams of sugar with an unbelievable 17 grams of protein. And right now, you don't need to wait to get your hands on a box of Built Bars. For years, we've talked about ordering at Built.com, but now you can get them at your local Walmart or Sam's Club, while you can still get your specialty flavors at Built.com. So head to Walmart today, walk into the pharmacy section and grab yourself a Built Bars. You can pick up a 4-box of cookies and cream, double chocolate, coconut puff. I, of course, love coconut almond. And if you're close to a Sam's Club, run on in and grab a 13-bar box with our hit flavors, Brownie Buff and Churro Puff. You can absolutely thank me later.
And welcome back to Locked On Rams. Thank you for making Locked On Rams your first listen every single day. Free and available wherever you get your podcast. And to our friends over on YouTube, drop some comments down below. Do you think the Rams should trade Matthew Stafford? Are you interested in possibly signing Carson Wentz? Let us know down below. Shout out to our Everydayers, too. You guys can be a part of the Everydayers Club. It's free. You don't have to pay for a membership. Just hit that subscribe button down below. But we're going to get into this topic. I can't believe I'm talking about Carson Wentz and the Rams once again. I mean, they're linked to him every single season at times. I mean, you saw in 20 before they drafted Goff that he ends up being the number 2 pick in that draft. And ESPN's Jeremy Fowler reported that he was working out in LA. He was linking them with the Rams. It wasn't working out for the Rams, but rumors started to swirl about maybe the Rams and Carson Wentz. Do you like that pairing at all? Do you think it makes any sense for the Rams to consider signing Carson Wentz, Trav?
Well, look, Doug, I understand that part of doing a talk radio show, that part of doing a podcast is sometimes entertaining the premise, despite the fact that it's a terrible idea. This is just a full terrible idea. This is just one of these things that, look, I want to back up a little bit because this is such a bad idea that I think we need to go back to the beginning of time, or at least the beginning of the Carson Wentz, Jared Goff timeline. Go back to 2016 when the Rams drafted Jared Goff number 1 overall and Wentz went 2, like you mentioned. After that first season, it was, wait a second, Carson Wentz is competing for an MVP and Jared Goff can't play dead in a cowboy movie. How in the world did the Rams trick this off quite so badly? Let's just stop right there. The Rams were right. Jared Goff is light years better than Carson Wentz was. They nailed that pick. I understand it got off to a weird start. I know it didn't end exactly the way that the Rams fans wanted it to here in LA with Jared Goff, unless, of course, you think about the whole trade that came after that. But they got it right. So this is good news for whoever they pick moving forward. The Rams have been very good at the top of the draft, despite the fact that they haven't had a lot of picks. Go ask Philadelphia how they liked Carson Wentz. And I'm talking his teammates. Go ask the Indianapolis Colts what they thought of Carson Wentz. Go ask the Washington Commanders and his teammates there what they thought of Carson Wentz. He is a radioactive personality, according to the people that I've talked to and according to reading between the lines and things like that. This is somebody that is anti-culture. This is somebody that comes in and is about him. That is something the Rams don't do. The Rams are all about culture. We, not me, right? The standard is the standard. All the things that Sean McVay says. He may work out in LA because it's nice here and there are facilities and all these things. I would be stunned if Carson Wentz ever took a snap in a Rams uniform, because he is exactly what they don't do.
I think that is the number one point right there. And I don't think it gets mentioned enough is the fact that, he's not necessarily viewed as someone that strengthens the culture of your franchise. I mean, goes to the old adage, if everyone stinks, maybe you're the one that stinks, right? I mean, you played for all those teams in so many years. The Colts, it looked like it was going to be a good fit. It wasn't. The Commanders, they traded those picks to get him. And you're not going to...
Quick. Both of those teams got off of him quick. It wasn't like, it was, we've made a huge mistake. Let's get out of the Carson Wentz business fast.
You're right. No, it's like the Grandpa Simpson going into the restaurant and putting his hat on it, often going right out. Yeah, it was definitely something like that. I mean, it was
the Maison Derriere when Bart was the maitre d' at the what is it, the back house, I believe is what they called it.
Classic episodes. Yeah, no, and in the words of Bart Simpson, the Carson Wentz folds faster than Superman on laundry day, right? I mean, when the going gets tough. And you're not going to get that 2017 version that at a 78.5 QBR. And I always like to be positive. I like to say, okay, why would it work out for the Rams? Does it make some sense? If you want to point to some things, he has flashed upside. Yes, he has flashed potential. He did play at an MVP level in 2017, where coincidentally he did sustain that ACL injury against the Rams in the Collies. So look, but the thing is, he makes bad decisions. He's reckless with the football. He makes ton of mistakes. He has costly turnovers. And I think, yes, you can look at the fact that you have Sean McVay, and we saw in that very small sample size that McVay definitely knew how to optimize Baker Mayfield, another top pick that didn't work out with another organization. And also, too, if he is willing to be a backup and take backup money at $3 to $6 million per year, maybe it does make some sense from an upside potential. If also you keep Matthew Stafford and you don't think Stafford is going to stay healthy for 17 games, maybe, you look at the upside play there. But for me, in the words of the great Randy Jackson, that's a no from me, dog. Okay. I can't stand the thought of Carson Wentz on the Los Angeles Rams. I don't know. It just makes my skin crawl. I think you would agree with me, right? I mean,
look, he's a bad culture guy. The Rams will take a chance on a guy who maybe didn't work out somewhere else. Think OBJ, think Baker Mayfield, think Dante Fowler, some of the guys that just, that wasn't good there, but these weren't negative culture personalities necessarily. It didn't fit more for football reasons along the way. Carson Wentz has been in three places, and three places couldn't get away from him fast enough. I think we know what we need to know.
All right, so that is the segment on Carson Wentz. And let us know down below in the comment section, do you think the Rams should go after Carson Wentz? Are you as against the idea as we are? I think we've made it pretty abundantly clear. We don't want to see Wentz in LA, but let us know down below. And coming up in our final segment, if the Rams hypothetically do trade Matthew Stafford, could you see Stetson Bennett as QB1 for this transition year for the Rams? That's coming up on Locked On Rams. And welcome back to Locked On Rams. Thank you for making Locked On Rams your first listen every single day, free and available wherever you get your podcasts. And also shout out to our everydayers. We appreciate it. And we're also available on YouTube, so be sure to check us out over on YouTube. Hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell. But Travis, in the final segment here, this is going full-blown speculation, full-blown hypothetical mode. But let's say the Rams do theoretically trade Matthew Stafford and move off of him. That's a signal that they are punting on this season. And we know that you did bring in Brian Ripien. He was the backup for Russell Wilson last year in Denver, but you also made the draft pick of Stetson Bennett. He's a mature quarterback. He's an older guy for a draft pick, 25 to 26 years old. Do you like the idea if they move off of Stafford to go with Bennett in year one?
I like it if your plan is to try and get Caleb Williams. I don't like it if your plan is to try and win football games in the short term. I don't like it if your plan is to get his feet wet and ultimately have him be your quarterback moving forward. I think that this is exactly what you described, D-Mac, which is if something, and again, I don't think that Matthew Stafford is anything other than going to quarterback the Rams this upcoming season. But if they do, or if an injury happens, or any of the things that could lead us to needing to use that second quarterback, the fact that Stetson Bennett is QB2 right now tells you how the Rams are approaching this season. This is a place where you need some level of NFL competence. And I want to go back to last year as well. When Stafford went down, John Wolford previously had been okay. We saw him play at the end of a season when Jared Goff was still there. We know that he got the start in a playoff game. But when you got to see him on a more regular basis, it was not of NFL caliber. It just was not, nor was Bryce Perkins. Then all of a sudden you see Baker Mayfield come in, and not that Baker Mayfield's the second coming of Peyton Manning, but there's number one overall talent in him, right? The reason he was taken number one is he can do some things that are of NFL caliber, and you just start to see some really different throws after watching Perkins and Wolford for a couple of weeks. So fast forward to what we're talking about right now. Stetson Bennett, I don't know. I think there's probably a reason he bounced around in college the way that he did. He's a little undersized. He's not exactly a prototypical NFL quarterback. And if this is a guy to get you to the finish line, fine. If this is a guy that you're going to try to build your offense around, I don't like that at all. And I don't think that he is. I think Sean McVay knows that. I think Les Snead knows that. I think that, again, I'm going to say this a lot between now and the start of the season. Look at what they do, not at what they say. And what they're doing is they have a quarterback in their number two position that if he had to play a lot, they're in deep, deep trouble.
Yeah, no, I agree with you on that. I think there's two ways to look at it. You could say, yeah, if they are in a position where Stetson Bennett is possibly the guy, then yeah, maybe are going to run the table in reverse, go over 16, have the brown paper bags like the Detroit Lion fans in the crowd. But I don't know if I like the idea as far as his development. If you look at Les Snead, some of the comments he made about Stetson Bennett, after the draft, you said, we did think that it could be very beneficial if we could find a young quarterback to draft and develop as a backup. So to me, that sounds like they want to make him a career backup. They don't want him to graduate as a starting quarterback in this league. Look, there were some reports out there that he had been in Georgia for 7 years, and there was no proof that he graduated. So I don't know if he's going to graduate to being a starting quarterback in the NFL, but I think he's going to be a backup quarterback that's going to, if he gets the opportunity, win games, make throws into tight windows. He has a competitive spirit. I think he profiles perfectly as a backup quarterback. And yes, you always have to take GM speak with a grain of salt with Les Snead. And Emilio, he's also called Matthew Stafford a pillar of the franchise that they're going to build around. But we know things change in the NFL. So my question to you is, if you did go with Stetson Bennett in year one, if you had to, do you think that would stunt his development as a backup quarterback in this league potentially, Travis?
I don't, Doug. I think that you're talking about a position that the only way you really kind of learn how to play quarterback in the NFL is to play quarterback in the NFL. I don't know how much you learn in a meeting room. I don't know how much you learn at practice. Probably some, but not nearly as much as you do of going out there and throwing it to the wrong team over and over again and saying, oh yeah, okay, that doesn't work. I need to try something different, that it can look one way on film and then in the actual live action feel very different. Most good backup quarterbacks in the NFL are failed starting quarterbacks in the NFL, guys that can just kind of get you through it when you need to do it. I think of all the guys that the Rams have had come through here as their QB2, Blake Bortles, who barely played, was the guy that gave me the most level of confidence. Not because he's a great player, he wasn't, but he played in the NFL as a starter for like 6 seasons. There's not too many things you're going to throw at him that's going to make him feel uncomfortable. So I think Stetson Bennett, even if he gets in there and plays very poorly, I think it ultimately helps him, because the only way you're really going to learn that spot is by playing in that spot.
Yeah, I tend to agree with that. I mean, throw him into the fire, see what he has. I mean, like you said, you're not going to learn until you get that experience going against NFL defenses. And I do think he ultimately is going to have a role. And what I like most about him is you're going to have some cohesion as a backup. Also, we know veteran backup quarterbacks, they take up more cap space than quarterbacks on rookie contracts. So to that point, I think he's going to be fine. But I don't want to see him as my QB1 if you're interested in winning games. And also, too, don't want to shake his confidence for the future. But that is going to do it for this episode of Locked On Rams. My name is Doug McCain. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at DMAC_LA. And that man to your right, Mr. Travis Rogers. You can follow him on Twitter at Travis Rogers. And let us know down below in the comment section, should the Rams consider trading Matthew Stafford? Or is it a no from you on Carson Wentz? Or do you like the idea? Let us know down below.
It better be no.
It better be, or Travis going to come at you in the comments. But let us know down below. And until next time, whose house? It's Locked On Rams house.